Young Miguel Juan Pellicer, born 1617 and died at age 30, had his leg amputated due to an accident. Thanks to his great devotion, the young man nurtured himself through the Most Holy Sacrament and the Virgin of Pilar. A great miracle came upon him, which was immediately recognized and approved by the Bishop of Zaragoza, who presided over the canonical process. In his clear judgment, he wrote that, quote, Miguel Juan Pellicer of Calanda was miraculously given back his right leg, which was amputated years prior, and it was not a natural occurrence, but a miraculous one, unquote. Miguel Juan Pellicer was born in 1617 to a poor family of farmers in Calanda, Spain, a village about 100 kilometers from Zaragoza, Spain. By the way, if you haven't already seen our other Eucharistic miracle at Zaragoza, Spain, concerning a miraculous infant, it's linked at the end of this video. The details of this case are documented in the book El Miracolo, The Miracle, by Vittorio Messori. This account is principally based upon that account in Messori's book. At 20 years of age, Juan Miguel Pellicer decided to go to work for his uncle near the town of Castellón de la Plata. One day, while working in the fields, he was steering a cart full of grain by riding one of the mules that was pulling it. Miguel fell off the mule, probably because he had fallen asleep. The cartwheel passed over his right leg, fracturing his tibia bone. He received initial treatment at Castellón, then was admitted to the hospital of Valencia, where he stayed for 5 days. Realizing that it would be impossible for the doctors to cure him, he decided to discharge himself and begin a 300-kilometer trip toward Zaragoza to ask the Madonna of Pilar for help. He walked with crutches, leaning the knee of his fractured and now infected leg on a piece of wood. He reached Zaragoza in October 1637 after the 300-kilometer, 186-mile, 50-day journey, waning and feverish. He dragged himself to the sanctuary of Pilar, where he made his confession and received the Holy Eucharist. He was immediately sent to recover at Royal Hospital of Grace. On his arrival, the leg was in an advanced state of gangrene, leaving no other choice but to amputate it. In their testimony, the doctors described the leg as very gangrenous to the point of appearing black. In mid-October, 2 master surgeons, Juan de Estranja and Diego Millarello, carried out the operation. The leg was cut 4 fingers below the knee. Although they had made the patient drowsy with alcohol and drugged drinks, as was their practice at the time, Miguel suffered excruciating pain. In his torment, the witnesses would later say, the young man called upon the Virgin of Pilar unceasingly and with great fervor. The leg was then buried, as was customary at the time, in a special part of the hospital cemetery. The stub was subsequently cauterized with fire. It was a young practitioner, Juan Lorenzo Garcia, who took the amputated limb and buried it in the cemetery next to the hospital. Miguel Juan Pellicer stayed in the hospital for a few months until the spring of 1638. He was provisioned with a wooden leg and crutches and released from the hospital. From that moment, Miguel Juan was forced to beg for his livelihood near the sanctuary of the Virgin of Pilar. He was provided with the necessary authorization at the sanctuary of the Pilar. Every morning he went to Mass and prayed with fervor before the Holy Sacrament. It was customary for him to rub his mutilated leg with oil from the tabernacle lamp. During this time, he was certainly a familiar sight for a large number of the citizens of Zaragoza. He regularly returned to the hospital for checkups and treatment and saw Dr. Estranja. Every evening, he would ask the servants in the sanctuary for a bit of oil that burnt in the lamp and use it as anointment to rub on the stub of his leg, with the conviction that he would be able to draw the aid of the Virgin upon him. In the first months of 1640, now at 23 years of age, he decided to return to his parents at Calanda. After about 1 week's travel, he arrived during the second week of Lent, between March 11th and March 14th. Unable to help in working in the fields, he once again took up begging, going around the neighboring villages on donkey-back. Many people at the time must have witnessed his lower leg missing. At about 10 o'clock in the evening of the 29th of March, 1640, Pellicier laid himself down to rest. Because his bed was occupied by a soldier of the garrison that stayed in Calanda overnight, he went to sleep on a provisional bed in his parents' room. Between 10:30 and 11 o'clock, his mother entered the room and saw 2 feet appearing from below the cloak that was covering her son. Thinking that Juan Miguel and the soldier must have changed places, she called her husband to resolve the misunderstanding. But while removing the cloak, husband and wife were dumbstruck as they realized that this was indeed their own son. They shook him and shouted at him to wake him up. Some minutes passed until Juan Miguel woke up from a deep sleep. He told them that he had dreamt of being within the sanctuary of Our Lady of the Pilar and rubbing his leg with holy oil as he had done so often before. Soon after, all three agreed that the restoration of the leg was due to the intercession of the Virgin of Pilar. Miguel Juan had miraculously recovered his lost limb, which was buried 3 years prior by that practitioner, Mr. Garcia. According to the eyewitnesses present at the canonical process, quote, the leg was pale, smaller in size and muscular mass, but perfectly vital and allowed him to walk, unquote. News of the event immediately spread through Calanda, Spain. The following morning, the local judge, assisted by 2 surgeons, examined Pellicier and set up a report which he immediately sent to his superiors. On April 1st, Palm Sunday, Don Marcos Seguir, parish priest of Mausoleon, a village 50 kilometers away, went to the place of the event accompanied by the royal notary Miguel Andreu, who set up a certificate to express the testimony confirmed by oath of 10 persons. On April 25th, Pellicier and his parents went on a pilgrimage to Zaragoza to give thanks to Our Lady of the Pilar. And here too the young man was seen by a great number of people who had known him before with only one leg. Following a request from the city's authority, a formal inquiry was initiated in order to ascertain the veracity of the event. Legal proceedings, presided over by the Archbishop of the city, began on June 5th and took about a year. All hearings were public, and there was no voice of dissent recorded. 24 witnesses spoke out, selected as the most trustworthy from among the great number of people that knew Pellicier, both from Calanda and from Zaragoza. On April 27, 1641, the Archbishop of Zaragoza pronounced the judgment, thereby officially declaring the authenticity of the miracle. At the end of the year, Pellicier was also invited to the royal court at Madrid, where King Philip IV knelt down before him and kissed the leg. Recordings also show that the restored leg was the same one as that which had been amputated 2.5 years before, for it could be re-identified through some bruises and scars that were there before the amputation. Also, the hole in the cemetery of the hospital of Zaragoza, in which the leg had been buried, was excavated and found to be empty. In the appendix of his book, Vittorio Missori also reports the opinion of Landonino Culaga, primary surgeon of the Hospital of the University of Verona, a specialist in limb replantation. Cugola has carefully studied the testimonies given in the recordings of the proceedings at Zaragoza, which reveal that the leg, after it had only just been restored, was cold and hard, with contracted toes and blue in color. Hence, Pellicier was not yet able to put his weight on it and still had to move around with crutches. After a few days, the leg regained strength and the toes were stretched out again. Also, the leg was initially a few centimeters shorter due to the loss of bone tissue that was caused by the fracture. But within about 3 months, it regained its original length. According to Cugola, all this is in perfect accordance with the normal development of following the replantation of a leg, although the growth of tissue is usually supported by exerting a pull onto the limb. In Pellicier's case, this was not necessary. Vittorio Missori also lists and provides details of documents from the time which attest to the miracle of Calanda the most important of these being the certificate set up by the notary Andreu. The original document, which fortunately escaped destruction in the Spanish Civil War, is on display in a glass case in the town hall of Zaragoza. The minutes of the proceedings at Zaragoza. The original document, having been kept in the archives of Zaragoza Chapter House, was handed over to a Benedictine monk, Father Lambert, in about 1930, who then took it to France. Unfortunately, Father Lambert was killed in World War II, and it is unknown what has become of the manuscript since. However, before it disappeared, 4 printed editions had been published, the first of which was 1829. 2 notaries certified that these corresponded exactly with the original text.